unlocked. I'm pretty sure they open these up. There's one over here too. Yeah, I think they open these up. The bracket goes. Haha. The bracket goes like this. Or bam. They're color coded, so you can't mix them up. So this tan goes a tan, gray goes a gray. Always put the bottom one in first, because you'll never be able to get the top one in first. Twist it. She'll go right in. So you just put your two 13mm strut bolts in, your strut tower kind of crossbar bolt thing. The PCM is installed. It is time for some 1300cc injectors. On the fuel rails, there are these little retaining clips right here. You need to pop them off before you can pull the injector out. I would recommend putting a rag down there, because when you pull the injector, a little bit, a lot of it, depends, of fuel come out. You don't want it to just go right into the intake port and just sit on top of the valves. For the first time when you restart the car, it'll be flooded. You're going to want to re-put that little clip in, so you could throw a little bit of fuel on there and just stick her in there. Like so. This connector is going to face back. You're going to want to put this clip back in the injector to hold it down. So the bottom, the very bottom, is going to seat around the top hat. And then these little grooves right here clip into the side of the rail to hold it in. So you need to make sure it's not too far, but it's far enough up. You're going to want to make sure it's closed too, or it will one. Like so.
just sent me the updated file for the injectors, the catless mid pipes, 3-inch exhaust, and the trans tune and the lower temp thermostat. So I'm just going to load this on and we'll start her up and hear how she sounds. She should sound a lot better because without the cats, the engine or the ECU does some weird stuff. And once you're a 3-inch full exhaust, it needs to be tuned for it, but it will run a drive without it. It just sounds a lot better once it's tuned for it. So let's load this up.
I thought I had credits on my MPVI 3, but as you can see, I have 12 and 12. Now I have 6 on there. So I just purchased 6 and it shows old credits. So how you go about looking to see what credits you have available and not used, you need to go to the editor. The editor, before you load the tune, you can go to this little eye right here and you click on it and it's going to pull up all the information. So we're going to click on the eye again. So as you can see, it has 6 credits purchased and 6 credits used and 0 available. So you can see that I have 12 in my account. All I need to do is come up to the help button right here, click on it, and then you're going to resync the interface. So once we click on that, it's going to resync, and then on the bottom here it should say 6 credits added, total of 12. So it's just saying that I have used 6, but I have 6 available. It's weird. It should be separate, but it's just kind of confusing once you know to resync it. Now we close it. I can hit the information here again, and it should show credits purchased 12, credits used 6, and credits available 6. So now we can close this out. Now I can come to here, open the file. I'm going to come to my downloads. This is the tune from Mish. We're going to open that, and then we're going to come over here and I'm going to click on the EEPROM chip with a red arrow, and this is going to write the vehicle. So we're going to click on that, and then it's going to ask us to use the license. So it's going to say show license, and then it's going to say you have 6 credits available, you need 2 credits for the ECU, and you need 4 credits for the transmission. So we're going to go click this, and we're going to click down here, and we're going to hit OK. And it asks you if you're sure. You cannot undo this. Once you do this, it's going to pop right up once Dodge plugs into your OBD2 port, and it's going to void your warranty. So that's why you always have a spare stock ECU. You just click yes, because I want to turn this girl up. And now we're going to click write. So this is going to write the tune from Mish. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to connect the car. So this, we're going to connect, going to start scanning. And what it's going to do is it's going to log this file. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to start the car up, let it idle, shut it off, send this log to Mish, and then he's going to tune the 1300cc injectors and all the other stuff for the idle. And then we'll start doing some street driving and do the same thing until the injectors are perfectly dialed in. Beach has finally finished everything with the tune on the red Hellcat Magnum, and there wasn't really much to do, so I put 1300cc injectors in it. This does have the full 3-inch Magnum Flow exhaust with no cats, so it needed to be fine-tuned, especially with the injectors. He also tuned the transmission, and she feels great. She really is night and day difference between it being factory. Big shout out to Mish Tune. I will put a link in the description. Also, big shout out to HB Tuners. I will put a link in the description for all the stuff that you're going to need to get a Hellcat tuned, because you need that gateway bypass cable, and you need 6 credits, and you need an MPVI-3, and you need somebody like Mish that can dial it in, especially if you're in an area that doesn't have a dyno. You need to be able to remote tune it and whatever. A lot of people live kind of in the middle of nowhere where you don't have access. And to me, I've always heard that street tuning, and I've always seen that street tuning does a far better job at tuning a car, because you're in the real world instead of just on a dyno strapped down. Every time I see a car that's street tuned, it always makes a lot more power. It always puts down the power better, and it always beats the cars that say they're higher horsepower. So I'm gonna end the video here. Love the Hellcat Magnum. This red car is coming out great. I can't wait. I have some big upgrades coming for it, engine-wise, as well as exterior. So if you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a thumbs up, throw a comment below. As always, see you guys next time.
It's what inspired us to go try and... It's been exciting. Okay. Yikes. All right. Then Mr. Trump will be left with no alternative but to enforce her legal and equitable rights to expressly reserved and are not waived, including or misunderstanding. The original headline, body text, image URL, and article were all scrubbed from the website. Michael Wolff, he's like, that's just so funny. How'd that tweet do, by the way? Everyone was saying that we triggered Jen. It was like so funny. It did good. How'd that do? Okay, all right, almost a million. That's great. Okay, fantastic. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, we out ya. First lady, Melania Trump, puts a $1 billion bounty on the head of Hunter Biden, legally, over false and defamatory Epstein comments. Now, before you think like, oh, well, of course you can never win something like this. It's America, you got First Amendment, protection here. The Daily Beast has retracted and apologized for the exact same thing. Oh my goodness. Let's just pop over here to show you the seriousness of this threat. Daily Beast apologizes and retracts whole article alleging that Melania Trump has a Jeffrey Epstein link. This is a massive backfire. Let's just read sort of the body that has been left in the wake of Melania Trump to show you exactly how serious this all is. Daily Beast took down an article on Thursday alleging a modeling agent contacted Notorious sex predator Jeffrey Epstein and introduced Melania Trump to her husband, President Trump. The article, which detailed claims made by Michael Wolff, Daily Beast podcast, Michael Wolff can probably come get it as well, was replaced with an editor's note apologizing for any confusion. First Lady's lawyers contacted the left-wing outlet. After the story was published, the Beast received a letter from Melania Trump's attorney challenging the headline and the framing of the article, says the editor's note. After reviewing the matter, the Beast has taken down the article and apologizes for any confusion or misunderstanding. The original headline, body text, image URL, and article were all scrubbed from the website. Michael Wolff, he's like the creepy little author. He looks like a literal potbelly goblin. I don't know why this guy would ever have any access to anyone or anything, but anyway, Michael Wolff, who President Trump last month blasted as a third-rate reporter, laughed at by even the scoundrels in the fake news, charged in an interview with the Daily Beast podcast Saturday that Melania was very involved in Trump's relationship with Epstein. she's introduced by a model agent, both of whom Trump and Epstein are involved with. She's introduced to Trump in that way, says Wolf. Epstein knows her very well. The author has drawn heavy skepticism from journalists in the past. Wolf is a shoddy, dishonest journalist, and his book has been read with suspicion, says left-wing journalist Ajit Hare in New Republic, arguing that Wolf clearly plays loose with the facts, and now it looks like he may have some real problems on his hand. Because Melania is serious about these lawsuits. Melania's won, actually, multiple lawsuits, as has President Trump. They're on an absolute tear. Alex, in the first term, I think Melania won a defamation suit against the Daily Mail. Now, what's going to happen? What happened here at the Daily Beast is the lawyers say retract the article, take it all down. This is clearly defamatory, and the way you prove that it's defamatory is you must prove malice. How do you prove malice? You prove that somebody is knowingly printing false things about you. So you present the facts. This is how they normally go. You present the facts. You give them an opportunity to retract and apologize, and the matter is settled. I believe Melania has actually brought these cases forward and has won huge. Here we go. This is from 8 years ago. Melania Trump accepts Daily Mail damages and apology in libel case. First Lady paid damages and legal costs in a $3 million suit of UK's paper, claiming that she provided services beyond simply modeling. So they called Melania Trump a prostitute. That's what they did. And they paid dearly for it, millions and millions of dollars. And so these kind of things can and should be won by the First Lady. And so Hunter Biden, boy howdy, Hunter Biden's in it today. Let's read. First Lady Melania Trump is putting Hunter Biden on $1 billion notice over what she claims are false and defamatory and disparaging and inflammatory statements made about her, demanding he immediately remove and retract the content and issue an apology or face legal action, Fox News Digital has learned. Fox News Digital exclusively obtained the letter that Alejandro Brito, attorney serving as litigation counsel for the First Lady, sent to Hunter Biden and his attorney Abe Lowell. Brito demanded that Biden immediately retract false and defamatory and disparaging inflammatory statements about Ms. Trump, which were contained in a video interview with Channel 5, Andrew Callahan, who posted on YouTube early in August. Fox News Digital reached out to Channel 5 for comment and did not receive a full response. Failure to comply will leave Mrs. Trump with no choice but to pursue any and all legal rights and remedies available for her to recover overwhelming financial and reputational harm that you have caused her to suffer. In the video interview titled Hunter Biden Returns, earlier in August, the former son claimed Epstein introduced Melania to Trump. The connections are like so wide and deep. Biden also claimed that Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania, and that's how Melania and the First Lady and the President met. These are false, disparaging, defamatory, inflammatory statements, extremely salacious, that have been widely disseminated throughout various digital mediums, Brito wrote. Indeed, the video has since been republished by various media outlets, journalists, and political commentators with millions of social media followers that has disseminated this defamatory statement. Therein, tens of millions of people worldwide. Brito added, consequently, you have caused Ms. Trump to suffer overwhelming financial and reputational harm. Brito says that Biden's source for the false statements is a serial fabulist, Michael Wolff, whose lies are published by the Daily Beast in an article Melania Trump very involved in Epstein scandal. Following the receipt of our cease and desist demand letter a week ago, the Daily Beast issued an apology to Ms. Trump and retracted the false and defamatory statements contained in the article by deleting it in its entirety. Despite this, you have unjustifiably relied on Mr. Wolff's false, defamatory, disparaging information and statements about Ms. Trump to maliciously elected to publish them. Brito warned that he lacks any viable defense and overwhelming reputational and financial harm for First Lady to suffer. The timing of this video is evident that it underscores the actual malice behind the decision. This is what must be proven. In a defamatory case, it can be proven that you are knowingly publishing false statements. Given your vast history of trading on names of others, including your surname, talking to Hunter Biden here, for your personal benefit, it is obvious that you publish these false and defamatory statements about Mrs. Trump in order to bring attention to yourself. Boy. orders are demanded that on behalf of the First Lady, Biden immediately issue a full retraction video.
I'm the founder of Mudwater, and a lot of people ask, what is the difference between Mudwater and mushroom coffee? Well, it's actually...
I need a hat, but not just any hat. I need this hat in particular. This is the Bonneville 200 mile per hour club hat, and the only way to get it is to break a record at the Bonneville Salt Flats over 200 miles per hour. You can't just go 200 and get it, you have to go faster than 200 and also faster than anyone who has ever driven at Bonneville in your class. For me, that is 266 miles per hour, and there's a chance I can do it. But if you watched the last episode, you know that one of the cylinders in my car has significant damage. It's way down on compression, and it's possible that it will just implode at the first sign of power. But that is a risk that I am willing to take. So we packed up the car and all our gear and drove 700 miles in search of a hat. We haphazardly shoved everything into the back of the Wizard van. Storage was helped by this filing cabinet that I got for free on Craigslist the previous day. We made it about 2 miles from my house before we encountered our first setback. Someone rear-ended me. They were going very slow, but it was not a great way to start the trip. 4 taillights, reflective strips, red straps, and the weirdest looking car you've ever seen are apparently not enough to get some people's attention. But there was no damage, so we continued on to 10 straight hours of desolate boredom, also known as Nevada. We arrived at the Salt Flats to find it dry, a stark contrast to the shallow lake that it was the last time I was here. Much better this way. Unfortunately, some of that rust... miles per hour and then hold it there over the time. Mile. I don't see any reason to baby the engine. If it's going to blow up, we might as well find out right now. I got a push from the van up to about 35 miles per hour and then took off. Full throttle, and after about 15 seconds, it happened. There was a sudden drop in power. The car slowed. I kept it at full throttle until the end of the mile because why not? But that was it. That was the damaged cylinder giving out and ending our speed week on the first run of the first day. Or so I thought. As I was getting out of the car, a course worker stopped by to tell me what actually happened.
You pulled the chute, or popped the chute at about the 1 mile. You drug it the whole track.
Somehow, randomly, the parachute came out partway down the track, and I didn't know. That was the loss of power I felt. Turns out, the engine was fine. So we loaded up, got back in line, and gave it another shot. And again, the parachute came out for no reason. After 2 runs, I had managed a top speed only slightly faster than I did towing the race car on the highway the previous day. Not very fast, and definitely not super fast. We towed it back to the starting line to diagnose the problem. I have 2 parachutes, but I only need 1 for my class, so we just deactivated the one that kept deploying. Still, we spent some time in line diagnosing the problem. I have 2 ways to deploy my parachute. One is a button that opens a solenoid and moves an air cylinder. The other is a lever I pull with my hand. After some fiddling about, we determined that vibrations from the engine were causing the solenoid to activate at random. So we disconnected the solenoid from the air cylinder and got back in line. And this time, it worked. No deploying parachute, no exploding engine. I kept the throttle hammered and accelerated up to 188 miles per hour before I remembered that I was supposed to keep it under 175. I grabbed the brakes and slowed down just barely enough, coming in at 174 miles per hour. Good enough to move from my D license to my C license. We tried to get one more run in before the end of the day. I got suited up, buckled in, and made it to the front of the line just in time for racing to be stopped. A sudden burst of weather had arrived. Wind and rain. This happens sometimes out here, and sometimes it goes away as quickly as it arrives. So I stayed in the car, waiting it out. But eventually they called it. Racing was done for the day. A slow start, but not a bad day overall. 1 license down, 3 to go. Since we were next in line the previous day, we got to jump to the front of the line as soon as we arrived in the morning. We had solved the parachute problem, but auto racing is nothing if not a series of unexpected problems, so I took off into the early morning sun, cautious but optimistic. I needed to be somewhere between 175 and 200, and I crossed the last timing light at 190, the fastest that I've ever been, and good enough for the next license. There was one problem. My speedometer came loose and started to drift down into my field of view. We fixed that with some duct tape. The next step is 200 miles per hour, but before that we took a moment to look over the car to make sure everything seemed to be where it was supposed to be. Kirk noticed that the tail was not sitting correctly. There was this weird gap to the rest of the body that hadn't been there before. And then we looked under the car and saw a giant gaping hole where the salt had cut right through the fiberglass. Fun. Apparently, this part of the tail was being pressed into the salt from low-pressure air below it and high-pressure air above it, and the salt just acted like sandpaper, cutting through the fiberglass. I had printed these fender liners on my bamboo to keep the tires from spraying salt all over the tail, and the damage had broken one of them loose, so the whole tail was caked in salt. We took off the tail and cleaned out several pounds of salt. I cut away some of the fiberglass that was left in there, not really doing anything. We reassembled the car and fixed the issue with the best solution that 3 engineers could come up with: duct tape. We started with a layer of gaffer tape, hoping it wouldn't damage the stickers too much, and then layered on most of a roll of duct tape. We had some extra stickers from people at the event, so we stuck them over the duct tape to blend it in with the rest of the car. We checked everything else we could think of. The chain had stretched a bit, so we tightened that up and went back out for another run. This time we went to the long course. There are 3 courses this year, and we had done all of our runs on the short one. The line for that course is shorter, but it's only timed up to 2 miles, so if you're going faster than 200, you kind of have to be on one of the faster courses. Both of the long courses have timing between each mile up to 5, but before you can do the full 5 miles, you have to do 3 miles and then pull the parachute at the 3-mile marker, just to show that the car is stable and that you know what you're doing. So we lined up, got ready, and gave it full beans. At 1 mile, I was at 150. After 2 miles, I was going just over 200 miles per hour. And after 3 miles, as I pulled the parachute, I was approaching 230 miles per hour. Pretty fast, and good enough for my A license. But the acceleration was slowing. The speed was still increasing, but the digits were counting up very slowly. We were approaching the top speed of the engine and the car, and we were still almost 40 miles per hour away from the record. The record is 266, average speed over a mile, and if you get that, you have to come back the next day and back it up with a return run. And frankly, I did not think the engine was up to the task. But I did have another trick up my sleeve. You see, I'm running in the fuel class. There is a gas class where you can only run regular gas, but in the fuel class, you can run lots of other stuff. I was just running pump gas. I chose fuel mostly just because it was easier to not have to wait in line at the official fuel vendor. But with the engine damage, I decided to do a little extra thing before I left. A little extra thing that would make me not only fast, but also furious. That's right, I got nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is not a fuel, it's an oxidizer. It just allows me to put more fuel into the cylinders and make more power. I don't know how much power this engine can take before it grenades itself, but I had nozzles for up to 75 extra horsepower. And I decided the next day I would just go full tilt, right out of the gate, 75 horsepower. After some early setbacks with parachutes and body damage, things were looking up. We were going fast, and we were ready to try and break a record. And then someone died. Traveling at close to 300 miles per hour, Chris Raschke lost control of his Streamliner. He was treated by medical professionals at the scene, but he passed away from his injuries. There are a lot of steps taken to make land speed racing as safe as it can be, but this was a sobering reminder that it is inescapably dangerous and that speed is unforgiving. After discussing it, we decided to take it easy the next day. We set up the nitrous for a smaller 25 horsepower increase. We didn't actually know if this would give us 25 horsepower. Remember in my last video when we went to the dyno but found out the oil cooler was busted and one of the cylinders was damaged? Well, part of the reason for that dyno run was to tune the nitrous to make sure we were adding the correct amount of fuel to compensate for the added oxygen from the nitrous. And since we had those problems at the dyno, we didn't get to do that. So we took our best guess, plugged it into the engine controller, and gave it a shot. But before that, we had another problem to fix. The duct tape wasn't holding up. It was just getting abraded away like the fiberglass. We needed something more rigid, something that would hold up to salty sandpaper, something metal. We asked around, and then I remembered that we had some metal, in the form of a metal filing cabinet. Perfect. I took out one of the drawers and we traced out the opening cut into the fiberglass and then drew a larger outline to give us a flange to rivet to. Then I very carefully chopped a huge hole in the bottom of a filing cabinet drawer. We pop riveted it in place and for good measure added a bunch of duct tape to it, this time white duct tape to match the body color. We got back in line and did another run. This time, having previously qualified for the full course, I pinned the throttle for the entire 5 miles. The car accelerated quickly to 150 and then more slowly to 200. At mile 4, I looked up at my sagging duct tape speedometer to see 249, and then it started to slow down, only a little bit, but my speed over the last mile was slower by about 4 miles per hour. There were 2 problems here. One is that the nitrous was clearly not tuned correctly. It was running rich, too much fuel. That was on purpose. You always want to start with too much fuel since the opposite could kill the engine. Unfortunately, the sensor I have to measure this was intermittent and it didn't record anything on the previous run, so we couldn't really change anything. The other problem was gearing. The car is geared for a top speed of 308. Optimistic. Too optimistic. When I shifted into the next gear, it dropped me out of the power band and then I didn't have enough power to keep accelerating. We should have geared it for something closer to the record, maybe 280. I had brought several gears, but the next lowest set I had was for a top speed just slightly slower than the record, so that wouldn't help us. But I was not about to give up so easily. I still had the ability to add up to 75 horsepower of nitrous. It wouldn't actually be 75 since it would be running way rich, but it would be more than we had before. So I installed the 75 jet, updated the engine controller, and went back out. And this time I went 5 miles per hour faster. That is definitely not an added 50 horsepower. But this time the oxygen sensor did work, so we took the laptop back to the hotel and made some plans. We started the day by topping off all the fluids. The coolant was boiling off after the runs. Temperatures were fine when running, but as soon as I stopped it, it would heat soak and overflow. I added a tool to the cockpit so that I could take off the engine cover while waiting for the tow vehicle. The chain was getting loose again, so we replaced it. We had noticed a couple of things from the data the previous day. First was that the engine was adding way too much fuel with the nitrous, so we leaned that out a bit. The other was that whenever I would shift, the engine was falling just below the minimum RPM I had set for the nitrous. So I widened the range a little bit. This meant that I would need to be careful when I flipped on the switch, not doing it too early or too low in the revs. The computer controls when the nitrous will be on, but I had also added a switch that I could use to turn it on or off. I labeled this the $3,000 switch because that's how much I spent on the engine, though I should change it to the $5,000 switch because that's how much they cost now. We got in line and waited for our run. When the moment came, I took off. It was the same as before, up to 150 at the 1 mile, 200 at the 2 mile. By mile 3, I was just under 230 when I switched on the nitrous. By mile 4, I was past 250 miles per hour. The top speed when I pulled the parachute at the exit of the last mile was 266 miles per hour. The record for my class is 266, but the record is for your average speed over a mile, not your top speed. And for me, that average speed was 261, just 5 miles per hour off. I slowed down and stopped on the return road. When I got out of my car, I noticed a small issue. Oil was pooling up underneath my engine. The engine was running when I shut it off, so I suspected that this was just an oil hose coming loose. I was so close to the record that I could smell it. It smelled like salty oil with a hint of hot fiberglass. After that run, with a record in our sights and oil on the ground, I decided to call it. We were done for the week. The car was just not going to go any faster. We needed lower gearing. We needed a proper tune on the nitrous. We needed an engine that has 4 functioning cylinders. If we had another mile, we could probably have done it. If we had tuned the nitrous on the dyno, we maybe could have done it. 4 good cylinders might have been enough, but we didn't have any of that. Our car was duct taped together, the chain was overstretched, we were using too much nitrous on a bad tune with an engine that was limping along on 3.5 cylinders. Maybe we could have blindly adjusted the nitrous tune, but as the Fast and Furious documentaries show, nitrous is dangerous and could result in my floor pan falling out. And I sit on the floor pan. In all seriousness, it could actually be dangerous to blindly tune the nitrous, certainly dangerous for the engine. Overall, it was a successful week. The car did better than I expected considering the handicaps we had. I got all the licenses I needed, and with the last run, I even got the AA license. We chatted with some other teams, watched some cars go down the track, packed it up, and headed home. But we are not done with this car, and we are not done with this engine. We have plans, because I still need a hat. Big thanks to all my Patreon supporters. You are the reason that I can do stuff like this and make these videos. If you want to get videos a day early and also some stickers, click that link and support the channel. If I get enough supporters, I can afford a haircut. See you next time.
This little thing helped me more than my last therapy session. It's called the Pandy, a lifelike plush toy designed and powered by AI. It makes you feel
I just want to knock the bugs off. Just had this detailed yesterday. So, I guess the basic.
The basic.
Yeah, my most important thing is getting the bugs off. 'Cause I drove in